the advertiser's job is just to get you to click. And so they've got to trick you. And I'm so tired of being tricked,
Right.
and I think all of us are. I mean, we're prickly these days. We're jumpy. We're not, we've been lied to. That's why, yeah, I think one of the reasons that trust is in the tank. We don't trust each other because we've been tricked so damn long, with just simple little things like advertising or headlines, or, oh, you get there and it's not really what you thought, or, it's just, you think everybody's lying, and we have no interest in that. And so I would rather that when our email drops in their box, they go, oh, it's almost like it's a relief. And if we put something interesting in it before, a story that is applicable to them or their industry or something just generally, they go, oh, it's almost like a break from the noise, the madness, the insanity of everything else that's going around. We can be the buoy of of sanity, of something where it's not going to shock you, or any of that. It's like,
Mhm.
finally somebody who can be solid and truthful. There you go. I get spun out about that stuff, but and because so many people, I mean, look at us. So is the world getting angrier or happier?
You know what it reminds me of is, you ever see the movie A Christmas Story? When the guy gets his
Yeah.
little secret
Oh
decoder,
yeah.
he gets the secret decoder ring out of the Ovaltine, right? And he's like, oh man, he's so excited.
Hmm.
He's got his piece of paper and his
Yeah.
pencil, and he's like decoding this message. And then the message is drink more Ovaltine. The kid's like, what? That's the message I got? Drink more Ovaltine, an advertisement?
Yeah.
That sucks. Make it engaging. Just
Yeah.
engaging. It doesn't.
A crummy advertisement. Yeah.
Right. I worked so hard to get this like secret decoder thing, and it just gave me an advertisement that really stinks. So, and it doesn't have to be, we're not Ernest Hemingway, right? It doesn't have to be some deep. It's like, and it's got to be short. It can't be, four
Yeah.
paragraphs long. And it's like, dude, I don't have time to sit and read, half a novel here. Just make it short and sweet, and just, and you play with it a while. You play with it and you figure
Mhm.
out what resonates with folks. How long does it need to be? We figured, we're like one paragraph. I mean, that's what we found is most effective, and not a long drawn email. And I get those too, newsletters, and then I get emails. It's like, did you write me a book? It's like, I don't have time to. I could just call you and you could tell me this in 30 seconds, or I could read it in 5 minutes. It's like, people don't spend the time doing that. They just don't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The other thing that we don't do, since we're talking about emails and writing, we don't spam. We don't buy a list and send an email.
No.
We just, well, if we buy a list, that's fine. But if we buy a list, we call, hey, da 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 da, and then send something.
Yes.
So it's just a lot more effective. I know it's because you can go out and buy 700 billion emails and hit go. Everybody's going to hate you, and now you've
Mhm.
just caused more noise and mistrust in the world. And um, and it's a lot more effective. Hey, just want to touch base. I've got this stuff. Just wanted to let you know who we are. Da da da. Pop it out, and now you do have their email, and now it's cool, and they expect, and then you use their email respectfully,
Right.
Mhm.
and they've heard from you. They heard from you that when your email shows up, they go, oh, that's the guy that called and said this, and whatever you said, hopefully they're going to semi look forward to. At least they're going to recognize it. Oh, in the subject line it says, you know, white poodle, you know,
Mhm.
and then they go, oh, there's that white poodle one. They don't remember your name, but they remember white poodle.
Right.
But anyway, but that's what we do, and it works very well because then they know you too. Anyway,
Mhm.
million reasons why we do that
Right.
first. What we don't do is call up and go, hey, we're going to send you our newsletter. That we don't do.
So, when you're So in that situation where you've got your list of not yet contacted, you're giving them each a call, or you got a list and you're giving them each a call. You know, what do you do under situations where they're like, yeah, I've got a couple of, you know, whatever you do,
Resources.
that I deal with, like, do you yeah, do you take the approach of like, hey, great, like let me do you send something to them? Do you just kind of periodically follow up with them? I guess you know
Chuck, I know, is chomping at the bit to
I,
take
I
this one.
am because
He's always
go
got a
ahead.
good
I've been
response on it.
exactly here, right? Because one of the things that we've done is we deal with a lot of banks. We'll handle when we started dealing with banks years ago. Underwriting was different, so there was a lot of accounts that banks couldn't get approved, so they would come to us to get the accounts approved. And there were scenarios where you would call a bank and they'd go, "Oh, I have somebody that I deal with." Great. Oh man, I love that because you obviously, you figured out you had a need for someone like this, and you understand that it's valuable to have a second resource for your clients. And I say it just like that. This is where like sales comes in, right? Because you have to kind of judge. Some people love them, some people don't care, some people hate whoever their second resource is. And this one might be a 2 or 3 call kind of deal, right? It's like, well, great, you understand the value. Well, let me do this because there's nothing wrong with having a backup, right? And we've gotten into scenarios where, because we're really good at what we do, that we could do things that their normal backup couldn't do. And then the next thing you know, their normal backup didn't exist anymore. Because what it boils down to is relationship. So we are so much more consistent than the competition. I call them once a month because I know I always called those. Those would be like a B, but I would call those every month because I want to win. I want to start getting their declines over whomever else they're using. They already understand the benefit. Now it's just rapport time. Now it's building rapport. Then in conjunction with that, you're sending good contact every month. You're providing better service than because that person essentially is your competition, right? Someone else is doing the same thing you're doing. They're your competition.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is I'll beat the competition. And quite frankly, it's relationship. It's relationship with these folks. That's really what it all boils down to. If they like you, if they trust you, they're going to do business with you over whomever else. And sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But I would call them, stay in contact with them. They understand the value, or I might, depending on where I am in my relationship with them, I'm like, well, what do you like about them? What don't you like about them? And then I have to sell my way into covering their needs that their other person is not covering. But discovery, this is where so many people, and we call it recon, we call it discovery, whatever you want to call it, is how often do you use them? Oh, no kidding. And then how's that work? How does it work? Ask them. You got to learn their deal. This is where you have to be a good salesperson because you got to uncover. Because what happens is they're telling you, you'll start uncovering little needs that they don't even know aren't being met. So you got to stay in contact with those. And I love those. I like hearing that because now I know I'm dealing with somebody that's a buyer. They go, oh, well, we have a second source. Yeah, we use them all the time. Okay, great. They're a buyer. Now I got to get in and do better than the other guy. And that's it's like selling anybody for changing their services. Well, you process here. Why should you process here? Because I need to uncover your needs that you don't even know possibly aren't being met, or you do, and then show you how I can help you with those needs. Same process, it's just a sales process, but you got to do discovery. You got to ask. And they're buyers. They understand the value.
Mm-hmm.
That's great because that's less explaining I have to do. Does that make sense?